Although Richmond is not a particularly large city, it has a diversity of culture. We took a look at the Black experience of African culture through the mediums of dance, art, and music. Given the opportunity to express whether they consider themselves Black or African Americans, some Richmonders had this to say.
Black American.
And why is that?
You're not exposed to the Afro-American culture like you should be here in Virginia. I'm originally from the New York, New Jersey area where the cultural experience is more prominent than down here.
Black American.
Okay, now why is that?
I was born in the United States of America. This is my country, and I declare this country as my home.
I consider myself as an American.
American. Okay.
Yes.
Neither Black nor African.
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Yes, I'm an American. Just point blank, I'm an American, a Black American.
Dr. Norris Jones, professor of history at Virginia Commonwealth University, says it is imperative that everyone know their cultural background.
I think it's very, very important for any people to know their history, to know their culture, to know what their forebears had done, what contributions, because one's sense of oneself, one's integrity, one's confidence is frequently rooted in that. And it's because of that that I think African American history has not been exposed, that in most textbooks growing up in any area of the United States, if there's any mention of African Americans, there's a brief section dealing with the antebellum South on slavery, and then there's a brief section 100 years later dealing with the Civil Rights Movement. And so if you have a people, and what this does, if one's Black and everything you see in terms of importance, in terms of value, in terms of significance, is a people of another racial grouping, I don't think one could help but question, well, what have my people done?
Janine Bell, business manager for the Ezibu Muntu Dance Company, says the primary purpose of the company is to provide education about African culture.
The Ezibu Muntu African Dance Company is a cultural arts performing ensemble of dancers and drummers. And so what we want to do is entertain our audiences as well as educate them about African cultures, customs, traditions, dance, rhythm, how that all integrates into everyday life. We have grown to become Virginia's only semi-professional African dance company, and I think that's very important. We have performed in many different kinds of settings, from performance halls and auditoriums to festivals, street fairs, even in churches, at conferences and workshops. And we also perform in various institutions around the state, like hospitals. For people who can't come to us, we'll go to them. And we've performed in correctional facilities around the state as well. Those are kind of special performances because the audiences are so very appreciative of what we do, and it's real live.
It's real interesting to see people first come to Ezibu and see them move, and then as they start listening to the music, you can actually see the change in them listening, and then when they dance, and when they initially came, they were just dancing. So it really is in listening to the music and feeling the rhythm. The music, the feeling, the movement, it's just totally different. You can actually feel, the movement. You can feel the movement through the rhythms, as in modern and ballet. A lot of it is rehearsed, or something that you were taught. It goes this way or that way. In African, you feel it. think the drum music, you know, just held my interest and really held my attention. And I think the drums and the music and the movement is what drew me, you know, to African dance more than anything.
They actually talk with the drums. They actually communicate. It's been used for telegraph purposes, and it's also been used for warfare. It's used for ceremonies like weddings, births, deaths, things like that. It's used. No leader in the African community no traditional ruler in the African community goes without a drummer. The drummer is the most essential person. Every chief has a drummer. Every chief has a set of drums that are played just for this chief. He has his own rhythms. Every nation or tribe in Africa has its own drum rhythms. So it's almost like another language that people respond to in that cultural group. This part of the South is one of the places that slavery had its strongest hold. So to counteract the images or the past vibrations, whatever you want to say, of what Richmond has been about, African culture can serve that purpose. And I think that African culture here is a healing experience. It has a healing effect on the people here. And I hope that more people in the city of all, colors get exposed to African culture.
And I prefer African dance because it's not just performing, it's living it, it's learning, it's experience, it's culture. I wouldn't have braids. I love my hair now. I remember going through the 60s hating the way I looked and, should it be a fro? Should it be straightened? Should I have curls? Should this and that? But now I have an identity, I feel, more so. And it all came about from being involved with African dance.
Because a major priority of the dance company is to educate and reach as many people as possible, members often perform at the state penitentiary.
At the state pen, the inmates there seem to really get even more involved. Of course, I guess they hadn't seen this type of thing so close. And they were very excited. The crowd was very energetic. They were very into what we were doing. We were very aware that a lot of the inmates knew what we were doing, the significance of it, the history of it, and we knew they appreciated it. And the inmates in the prison, I think, felt that, and it was a wonderful show. It was one of the best shows that I've been involved with since dancing.
Nita Austin, a professional dancer from New York, feels that African dance has not been recognized for the true art form that it is.
African culture has not gotten the recognition that I think is probably merited. I think it is merited. I think some of the dance forms are what would rightfully be called classical. And it seems that European forms have a monopoly on what is called classical. You see this in music as well. A lot of people would advocate that jazz is a classical music form. And of course, we will all know that, 100 years from now, that will become more evident. Well, I think some of the African dances and the music, because you can't separate the dance from the music, I think are classical forms of art, as opposed to just folklore, which has a connotation of being something less polished, less developed than what art is.
8 years of hard work, and now I'm finally beginning to see numbers and numbers of black and white citizens who come to the gallery who are really just curious and excited, and who feel proud that in Virginia we have something like this. I've heard it so many times. This does not look like a Richmond, Virginia gallery. Most of the work that comes in, which is purely traditional African art, is made out of wood. It's the masking tradition, and most of that masking tradition comes out of West Africa. pieces that are used in ritual, which means that not only do you have a piece of artwork, but you have a piece that's vitally used in the culture. They dance, there's music, ethics and morals are passed on. In the rural parts of Africa, when you hold up a certain mask, the group of people who make it know the story. When you talk about a transition with African art into Black American art, you're talking about a rupture with the introduction of the slave trade. Because the ritual that took place in Africa was stopped. So you couldn't pass on your values, you couldn't keep your language, you couldn't keep your family. The work is abstract, has always been abstract. Africans can do contrapposto and realism, but they choose to do the abstraction because of the highly spiritual nature.
Reggae music is another element of African culture which espouses spiritual and cultural enlightenment. Reggae, unlike other forms of music, emphasizes the rejection of Babylon, capitalism, and it addresses the racial and economic struggles of ordinary people. The Awareness Art Ensemble is a Richmond-based band. Awareness Art is partially responsible for the local popularity of reggae music. One of the group's major concerns is to convey the message of cultural awareness to people everywhere.
This is our mission here, to enlighten Black people as to their culture here in America and around the world. It's all one culture and all one vibe and all one love, which is African culture primarily, is why we're out here. And through reggae music, it's our basis, our weapon to fight against the foes of Babylon. Reggae music is growing in popularity all over the world. It's the music that once you hear it, it grabs your soul, it captivates your spirit, and it makes you want to move, and it puts you in a happy vibration,
A lot of people are hearing the music that have never heard it before, and when they hear it, they dance, and reggae has a way of intermeshing with the crowd and creating a kind of a vibration that people just loosen up and they have a great time. The music is becoming more and more popular with the more exposure that it gets. And I think that what has happened here most recently, in most recent years, is that a lot of folks, regular folks around here, are getting an opportunity to hear reggae, especially in Richmond since New Horizon has been open. And I have to give a lot of credit to the Awareness Art Ensemble, because for the last 5 or 6 years, these guys have trailblazed reggae in the southeast area.
Reggae deals with the issues of what goes on from the ancient tradition, from the griot days in Africa when a man would go around and tell what go on in place, right? So that's what reggae music does now. It's send a message out to what's going on.
To only know where you're going, you have to know where you've been, You have to know yourself, and you have to know who you are to deal with a world of so many different varieties of people, so many different races. You have to be secure within yourself as a person and as a race of people. And it's imperative that black people, people of color, of African descent, know their African history and know about their cultural roots, which if they die out, the black man is subject to die out. Maybe not physically, but mentally, which is a much harder death.